You're growing your business to live your life. So make your business work around your life, not the other way around.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Taryn McCarthy, and today is going to be a great day. I'm so grateful to have you here with me today. We have a phenomenal guest who I cannot wait to introduce you to. And I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me for our last episode when we talked all about competition versus collaboration, one of my favorite topics. And next week, we'll be talking about beliefs. So join us again on our next episode as we dive into our different belief systems. But today is an especially wonderful episode because we're talking to Stephanie Snyder. She is the host of the Opulent Life Podcast. She is a mom and she has such a fascinating perspective. I cannot wait for you to hear. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. It's so great to connect with you. I am excited for today's conversation.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I can't wait for my audience to get to know you better. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a Navy wife. I like to preface that because it makes me a little bit different than being a civilian wife. So my husband's gone periodically for months at a time, but that's all right. It comes with the territory, and it gives me a lot of time to myself when he goes away. So I get to do more baths and not feel guilty about it, right? I am also a mom of 4. My son is 13. He will be 14 this month. And my daughters are 11, 5, and 3.
Wow.
So we have our hands full here.
So cool. So much wealth.
So much. Yes.
That is so cool. I love listening to your episodes on your podcast. Thank you for putting those out in the world, the Opulent Life Podcast. Where did that come from? Where did your inspiration for the Opulent Life come from?
Well, where most of my inspiration comes from, God, divine source, the universe, whatever you want to call it. I refer to that higher power as God or the divine. And I was always connected as a child. I wasn't like super weird, but I knew like, hey, I could have a full conversation with God and be totally cool with that. And then when I had kids, kind of got too distracted to hear God and really thought for a little while that he had totally neglected me. That's not what happens. We actually just get so busy that we can't hear him, her, whichever you prefer. And then when shortly after baby number 4 was born, I had just finished my PhD. And everybody kept asking, well, what are you going to do with your time now? Like, what are you going to do with yourself? And first I was like, okay, you're all crazy. I just finished a PhD. Can I have a little breather room?
And I just had my 4th baby.
Right. Yes. And I'm having a baby. So can I have like a little bit of space here?
Yes.
And sure enough, just having those conversations welcomed in the idea of my first brand, which was the Overjoyed Mom. And that brand, I love that brand still to this day. It was really what started me. But then last year, in all the mix of the pandemic stuff, I felt like I was outgrowing Overjoyed moms. And I really wanted to help moms on a deeper level with the intuition connecting to the higher power. And also with their businesses. And so the Opulent Life was something that was born out of that. The word opulence is just, it's just incredible to me.
Such a great word.
If you don't know what it means, you need to go look it up.
Well, tell us, what does it mean to you, Stephanie?
So to me, it means like wealth and warmth. It's like, it's ultimately bliss, but in this like super cozy kind of way, not in like the blingy diamonds glitzy, although I do love glitzy. The license plate on my car says bougie. So if that gives you any idea. But it's, so for me, when I picture opulence, I picture like this massive beanbag chair that's like that super, super soft blanket fabric where you can just sink into it and you're sitting there just surrounded by love.
Oh, I like that image.
And so that's what I think of when I think of opulence. And usually my kids are like in there snuggled in with me and we're, watching a movie or, whatever it is, we're hanging out and just being fully present. But yeah, opulence it's a wealth frequency. And I just love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It feels indulgent in the most beautiful definition of that word. It feels fully indulgent and like you deserve that indulgence, and which I'm sure is so much about your message.
Yes. Yeah. I talk a lot about, because as a mom, and you're, very well aware of this, when we become moms, it's no longer just one voice in our head telling us that we're not good enough. It's all of a sudden this little person telling us that we suck at life, right? And they don't mean it. Kids are just very transparent and they don't mean to hurt your feelings. But if they're mad at you, they're going to tell you that they hate you. And so coupled with that, you have all this like people who are supposed to love you and love you unconditionally because they're your family, right? All of a sudden you're getting like all these nasty things simply because they feel safe enough to fully express themselves with you. But we kind of become, the target. Like, I had a bad day, so mom's gonna love me no matter what. So I'm just gonna spew this all over mom.
Yeah.
And so we get all of this, not necessarily negative energy, but all this extra energy that we then have to move through. And that can be a lot to make us feel like we're really crappy moms. And then you have Pinterest, and social media doesn't do anything to make us feel better about it, right? And so it's a lot, just motherhood in general. We don't give ourselves enough grace for it. It is difficult at times.
Yeah. And especially when you're outnumbered 4-1 there, Stephanie.
Yes.
I don't know if you've experienced that yet with your 13-year-old, but as they get older, they start ganging up on you sometimes.
So I am so blessed. My 13-year-old is an old soul. And so he loves, sometimes to the annoyance of his father, to step in and parent. Which is cool with me when I'm here, flying solo and my husband's gone on a trip.
Yeah.
I love that. But there's this fine line where it's like, okay, like you need to ease off. You're still 13, be 13.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure the whole relationship with his siblings gets complicated that way too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you mentioned intuition. And definitely, I see you and hear you speaking a lot about trusting your intuition. Was there a time in your life when you didn't? You mentioned a time when you felt that God or the universe had stepped away from you. That was your impression at the time. Was that the time when you were missing your intuition?
Yes. So I was totally shut off to that frequency. I was so consumed with a lack mindset that I couldn't see any of the signs. And it took my son saying something that just rocked me to the core for me to snap out of it. So we had come back from Sicily. We lived in Sicily for 3 years. My oldest daughter was born there. It was incredible. I mean, the food, the travel, the experiences, it was just amazing. And I had a full-time husband, which is rare depending on, the military branch that you're in, but he was home for 3 years. Right. Wow. And so we got to really know each other.
Surprise.
Right. Because prior to that, we had been married for 4 or 5 years at the time and probably had only lived together for half of that time.
Wow.
And so we came back stateside in 2012, and my husband was immediately thrown into a deployment cycle. And for the first full year that we were here stateside, he was gone 270 days out of that year.
Wow.
So here was me coming back from Sicily, which is a very feminine energy,
Hmm.
very flowy, very go with it, don't stress about it kind of thing. All of a sudden to East Coast, crazy masculine energy, like New York is very masculine energy. And so all of a sudden it was like, well, Steph, you've got to be more productive. You've got to show up and do more. And it wasn't that anybody said it to me, but my husband was gone. And so all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, I've got to do stuff. And my son was probably about five or six at the time. And I remember reprimanding him for just being a boy. And he climbed onto his bed and he looked at me and he said, nobody loves me. I should just disappear.
Wow.
And it was in that moment that I thought, oh crap, that's how I feel. And I've never said that out loud. I thought I was really great at faking mom's so good about all the things, but I felt like that. And it was in that moment that I realized I had to change for my kids. Because if my kids were picking up on that energy, it was not going to be good for anybody.
No.
And so I started really small because, again, I was in this lack mindset where the grass was greener on the other side. Clearly, everybody else's life was way easier than mine. And I was just doing something wrong. And so I started small. I started with a gratitude journal. And if you've never done a gratitude journal, they are incredibly powerful. But what it does is it shifts you from focusing on all the lack, all the crap that you want to complain about, to now all of a sudden you have to see all these things that you're grateful for. And I talk about this a lot with my clients, and I say, listen, what you focus on, you get more of. So let's say you decided you wanted to go buy a red Toyota Prius. Okay. You're like, oh, I really want that car. You've decided you loved it. Well, now as you drive everywhere, all you're going to see is red Toyota Priuses. And it's not because there's all of a sudden more of them. It's just because they've now come into your focus that you see them. And it's the same thing with other things in your life. If you are struggling with the lack mindset and, oh, I don't have any money, I never have any time, just shift your focus a little bit. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but it's incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So where in there did you learn to tap into your intuition?
So
maybe we should start by telling us what is your definition of intuition? Maybe we should start there.
That's a great place to start.
Because I think this word we throw around so often. What does it mean to tap into your intuition?
Yes. So I actually heard it in a car commercial the other day, and I was like, whoa, That's not, no, your car is not intuitive.
No.
Okay, sorry.
But it is the buzzword right now.
It is the buzzword right now.
It's a very popular thing. How do you tap into your intuition? And I think that's where many people get confused. What on earth does this mean? So what does it mean to you, Stephanie?
So intuition, some people call it their sixth sense. I just call it knowing without logic. Right? That's the easiest way that I can define it, because I'll receive information intuitively and there's no logical reason that would make sense or that I would receive that kind of information. And my husband thinks I'm crazy, and that's okay. But for me, because I'm an intuitive and I'm an empath, it's literally a 3-person conversation that goes on in my head. And so my intuition, which I call my soul, my heart, my spirit, there's a bunch of different words that I'll flip back and forth between. But when I hear my intuition, it's on the left side of my body. And I will literally hear a voice on the left side of my body. It's still my voice, but it's a different energy. And then on the flip side, there's the ego, right? There's the logical mind that is constantly just trying to keep you safe, right? That's what the logical mind just wants to know, that there's a plan, wants to know what's going to happen next, right? And I hear that voice on the right side of my body. And so I will receive intuitive information and I can feel it on the left side. And it can be about a number of things, right? Today, I went for a run, and there's a bike path not far from my house. And so I usually pick up the bike path and I'll do a couple miles and come back. And there's a shopping cart that I've seen thrown into the woods for several weeks now. And so I'm running along, and I was having a conversation with God, and we were talking about how much fun things are and all these kinds of things. And the shopping cart caught my eye, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to have fun with that. So the left side of my body was like, yes, let's do this. The right side was like, no, we're almost done with our run.
Yeah.
Can we just finish the run and go home? And so I hauled this thing out of the woods, pulled it up on the bike path, and I was running down the road, jumping on it, letting it ride. Like, people probably thought that I was crazy. But I was grinning ear to ear. Yeah. I was laughing. I didn't care. I was having fun. And, after a few minutes, I got off and I finished my run, and it was all fine. But your intuition is playful, right? It's there to help you in the easiest way possible. Whereas your logical mind wants it to all make sense before you take action. And so the intuition is kind of that divine magic where you're like, I don't know why I should do this, but I'm going to do this. I just feel like I need to do it. Right. And sometimes, we'll have that gut feeling, right? That's your intuition as well. And it's a muscle, like any other muscle in your body. If you don't use your intuition, it's going to be very weak, and you're not going to really be able to pick up on it quickly. But the more you use it, the better and stronger and faster it gets, and the easier it is to trust it.
I love it. And so play with it.
Yes.
Pick up that shopping cart when you see it. If your intuition. And so the shopping cart didn't necessarily bring about some enormous revelation.
No.
But it just helped you strengthen that muscle. Keep playing with that.
Exactly.
I like that.
And so that's how I teach people to start to use their intuition. Start very simply, right? Because we all want that intuition for the big thing, right? Like, I don't want to screw up my business, so what's the thing that I should do, kind of thing? Or I don't want to mess up this big life decision. But if you haven't trusted your intuition on all the little stuff, you're going to really struggle to trust it on the bigger things. And so start very simple. Ask yourself, do I want a salad for lunch? Yes. I usually eat a salad, right? But even easier than that, when you're beginning at the very, very beginning of this, you have to feel what a yes and no feels like in your body. You have to be able to distinguish it, because if you can't distinguish what yes feels like versus what no feels like, then if an intuitive hit comes, you're not going to know what to do with it. And so start even simpler than that. Say your name. My name is Stephanie. Well, I know that that's a yes, right? I know how it feels in my body now. And if I were to say, no, my name is Emily, well, that feels different in my body. And so you can start practicing that way. But simple yes or no questions are a great way to start to strengthen what it is that you're hearing and feeling.
I love that advice, Stephanie, because I think as women and moms and also high achievers in general, we tend to ignore our bodies.
Yes.
We can go through a whole day and not realize we need to pee.
Right.
Especially taking care of 4 kids and everyone else's needs and the calendar and whatever we have to get done in the day.
Yes.
And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm popping to go to the bathroom. And you've been ignoring your body all day. So I love your advice of getting back in touch with what does this feel like in this body that I'm in right now.
And it is a struggle for moms. And that was my struggle. I was so busy that I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. I was bulldozing through my emotions because I was a mom. I had to be strong. I couldn't X, Y, and Z because I was a mom. And when I started to tune back into my intuition, it really got stronger as I gave it space. So if you're just steamrolling through your day and there's no gap for you to sit and breathe, you're going to wonder where your intuition is. It's in those gaps. It's in those moments where you're in the silence and you know what it is you're supposed to do to grow your business, to feel better, to do this, to do that. But if you don't sit and take the time to ask yourself, then you're going to be listening to what somebody else says. And it might not be in alignment with you.
Mm.
And so that was another thing that I started with, was journaling.
Mm.
I would pull out a journal and I would ask myself, okay, what is blocking me, right? Or what's in my way, or what do I really want? And I would just let it flow.
Yeah.
And that, without any judgment, right? Because the ego, the rational mind, will judge all day long and be like, what do you mean you want a lazy river in your backyard, right? Like, my husband's on this kick. He's like, let's put a lazy river in the backyard. I'm like, no.
Don't you have chickens in your backyard, Stephanie?
We do.
Yeah, I'm
so
picturing
I don't
these
think the lazy
chickens
river
going
would work very
swimming in the
well.
lazy river. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. You know, something that you mention on your website, and I think this ties in so well with the conversation about tapping into your intuition. You mentioned your ability to manifest. And you say that an idea or feeling of opulence has to precede manifestation.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about what that means to you in terms of that importance and the value of feeling opulent in order to manifest something. And how does your intuition play into that?
I love this. This is juicy. Okay. So everything in the world is energy. It's a frequency. It vibrates at different frequencies. Even if it doesn't look like it's moving like a water bottle, there's still movement in it. Everything is energetic. And if you want, let's say your goal is a $10,000 month. Okay. And right now you're sitting at $5 a month. Okay.
So you're talking about in terms of earnings.
In terms of earnings, yes. Because this is an easy way to visualize this, right? So if you're sitting at $5 for the month and you want to make $10,000, the person that easily makes $10,000 is different than this person who's making $5. And it's the same sort of thing per hour, right? Like, CEOs are paid a lot of money because they are at a different frequency than maybe Jane, who's working in the office getting $12 an hour, right? It's not that one is better than the other. It's that one has figured out how to vibrate at a higher frequency and thereby attract things to them. Okay. Because as you change your frequency, we're all magnets. Okay. Energies, magnets. So we're all magnets. And so as we change our frequency, we become more magnetic to other things. So if you want to make $10,000 a month in your business or in your job, you have to figure out what the $10,000 version of you does. And then you have to show up and be that person before the money comes. Okay? Because you attract what you are, not what you want. And so this to a lot of people, once they can grasp this, they go, oh, yes. So it's not about what you're doing, but it's who you're being while you're doing that thing.
Love it.
And I found this out very quickly in my business because I first came at it and I said, okay, cool. I want to be this coach. I want to help moms. Basically, I told people that I helped moms get their shit together. Excuse my language, right? Like, that's how I started. And initially I thought, well, I'm not going to be successful at this because all these coaches don't have kids. They're not juggling raising babies and growing a business. They're all maybe just married, don't have children, and they have 40, 60, 80 hours a week that they can dedicate to grow their business. So initially I was like, well, surely I won't be successful because I don't have that much time. And my coach stopped me dead in my tracks and she said, it doesn't have to be that way. What's your superpower? And I was like, superpower? She's like, yeah, talk to me about what your week looks like. And so I broke down what my week looked like. And she was like, yeah. She said, you literally do more in 2 hours than I do in an entire week. She said, not only that, but you've got it down to a system. That's what people want. That's your superpower. And I was like, oh, well, shoot. Okay. So I started to talk about, okay, how do you grow a business when you don't have a lot of time?
Hmm.
Because that's one of the tripping blocks that I see so many people come up against. They go, I want to start a business, but it takes 40 hours a week to do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't. And if you really sit down and look at corporate America, okay, people have become incredibly efficient working at home now
Yes, they have.
because they're not standing by the water having a coffee break. They're not checking their email or their social media in the middle of the day. They have shrunk their day because they've got other stuff to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? A task will take exactly as much time as you give it.
Absolutely.
So if you have 40 hours to complete a project, it's going to take you 40 hours to complete a project. But if you're a mom like me and you only have 2 hours to complete a project, you're going to be laser focused and you're going to get that project done in 2 hours. It might take some training to get to be that efficient, but that's the purpose, right? Because you're not growing your business to do more work. You're growing your business to live your life. So make your business work around your life, not the other way around.
Wow, that's a big change of perspective from what many, many people feel.
Yes.
And from, more importantly, from the way many people act.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did you do to put yourself in that mindset of a successful business owner and mom of four? How did you put yourself in that new mindset?
So I knew that on any given day, I had maybe 4 hours max when my babies were little. I was working the nap time hustle. They were napping in the morning and in the afternoon, right? My babies are incredible nappers. I have been blessed with that, right? And so they're also very self-entertained. So I knew if they woke up from a nap early, they would still play and sing to themselves in their cribs. Anyways, so I knew that I had no more than 4 hours. Because when everybody was done with school in the afternoon, mom had to be on because there were after school activities, there was dinner that needed to be made. And so I couldn't do evening work, right? Because I also couldn't guarantee that my husband would be home.
Right.
So I had to say, okay, well, I have 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, because I will not work the weekends, refuse to, won't do it, right? And so then I said, okay, well, that's 20 hours. Now, what else do I have to do to be able to be present working for those 20 hours? Well, first off, I couldn't do 20 hours because at one point during that time, I had to clean the house. So automatically knocked off 2 hours because it takes me about 2 hours to clean the house, right? Then there was another day I needed to do grocery shopping, right? So there went another 2 hours. So now we're looking at 16 hours max. Okay. So then I was like, well, do I really want to shove in work every single moment possible and not have a minute to myself?
Right.
Absolutely not. So I knocked off another 2 hours on Friday afternoons and I said, I'm not working Friday afternoons. That's my time to regroup. I can sit, watch whatever TV show I want. That's me time. And so it came to about 14 hours a week is what I was giving myself maximum. And I said, okay, well, based off of 14 hours, what kind of work can I get done in 14 hours? Because here's what some people do. They go, oh, I have 14 hours. So I'm going to spend all that time marketing and creating conversations and building all these relationships. And then what they do is they go, I want a client. And then they look at their schedule and they go, I don't have time for a client. Where am I going to fit that person? And so I took it one step further and I said, okay, I know that I want to work with clients privately or in a group setting of some sort. So I need to make sure that I have time to attend to those clients in this schedule. So my marketing got knocked down to 5 hours a week. That was it. I had 5 hours a week to build relationships, to create posts, to do the podcast, to do Facebook Lives, whatever it was. And so I had to get really good at inspiring myself. Because what I see a lot of moms come up against is, well, I only work when I'm inspired. Okay.
You'd be sitting around waiting forever.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I had to create an environment that inspired me to connect to the intuition, to connect to that higher energy. And so how did I do that? I said, okay, well, I have this amount of time and I'm going to make it fun. Because if my business isn't fun, there's no way on God's green earth that I'm going to want to show up. I got enough stuff that I have to do that I don't want to have to do business. It's got to be fun. And so my marketing became what's really fun for me. Facebook Lives were really, really fun for me for a time. I don't do a lot of them anymore because I absolutely love podcasting.
Yeah.
Podcasting is really fun for me because it's not so regimented anymore.
Yeah.
I can record an episode when I feel like it. I can have great conversations when I feel like it. And so I really love podcasting. That's a big part of my marketing. The other part that I really love is showing up in Facebook groups. I'll be honest, my Facebook group was a hopping place for a while. And then I kind of got tired of it. And it felt like I was pulling teeth to get people to engage. So I said, well, that's not fun anymore. So now I hang out in other people's Facebook groups.
Interesting.
Because I don't have the responsibility of keeping the content going in that group, but I can hang out and answer questions and post and get engagement, and I'm not responsible for it. So I love to hang out in other people's Facebook groups. It's fun for me. And so those are the places that I now hang out, but I hung out only where I really wanted to be. Only the places that were fun, because that's where people are going to be drawn to you anyways. They're not going to be drawn to you if you hate Facebook Lives and you're punishing yourself doing a Facebook Live.
Yeah. What I love about all of these steps that you were taking is each step along the way, you were probably knowingly, but maybe not to everybody else, tapping into your intuition.
Yes.
What am I liking about this? What am I not liking about this? And then your linear brain was really helping you with your time audit.
Yes.
Let's be really cautious here about where we're realistically going to select times to work and set ourselves up for success from the very beginning. So I love that you were using both sides of your brain in concert and making that ego brain work for you in hand with your intuition.
Yes, because I can sit down and I can create content for a full week in less than an hour when I'm in the zone, but I get to determine when I'm in the zone, right? It's not, oh, well, I don't feel inspired unless, no, it's okay. I'm excited about this. I'm inspired. I'm going to write. And so when you can turn on the inspiration, that makes life easier.
So what do you use? Do you have a tool? Do you have a prayer? Do you have a stone? Do you have a touch point? What do you do to turn on your inspiration?
So a lot of the time it's a run. When I go out for a run, it's very meditative for me, but I get tidbits. I can have a full conversation with my soul or with God or whoever's around me. And I'll have a full conversation and I'll receive a whole bunch of just little snippets of things that I could put into content. And I use my Apple Watch a lot. I'll talk to Siri and be like, hey, remind me to do this. Talk to me about this note. And that way I can stay open to all the information coming because I'm not going, oh, no. I have to remember this thing. I can't not forget it. I can't forget it. And then I end up blocking myself from anything else. And so I just let it flow. And I'll go back when I'm sitting down at my desk. And usually I make sure I've had something to eat and I have water with me, and I'll put, I love the orange citrus essential oil. And I'll put that in my diffuser because it just perks me up. There's just something about that smell where I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I'll sit down on my computer and I'll pull up those notes and I'll be like, okay, what was the train of thought that was going there? Do I want to make it long? Do I want to make it short? What does it look like? And it just flows. And then I can, if I am rushed for time, I will put a timer on myself. But a lot of the times I've now become very intentional with it, that I can go, okay, that's a great post. Cool. Next thing.
Love it. I love the ritual part of that as well, because I think sometimes we don't recognize the power in having that orange scent, if that works for you, or even, there's a great writer, his name's escaping me right now, who was talking about writer's block. And anytime he had writer's block, he'd dress in a certain outfit. And that outfit told him, game on. Now's the time.
Yes.
There's no time for waiting for inspiration. We're going to turn it on right now. And I love the power of that.
Yes.
Whatever kind of ritual speaks to you to tell you, your brain, your mindset, your intuition, that now's the time to start creating.
Yes. And the thing that I love most about it is that I give myself permission to not be creative all the time. I don't have to be on all the time. And that is the problem with having your business on your phone.
Yeah.
Right? You can constantly be working, but then you miss out on being present with your kids.
Yeah.
And, thank goodness for my kids being, totally blunt. My daughter said to me one time, Mom, why are you on your computer so much? Shoot. Okay. Noted. And so I had to set boundaries around the time that I'm on my computer because, again, I'm creating this business to live my life, not the other way around.
So cool, Stephanie. So what have you manifested in your life as a result of this identifying with an opulent mindset?
So many things. So one of the funniest ones, which I just think is really entertaining, a couple years ago, I wanted to buy some flowers for the garden for my backyard. I have a very large garden. We have about 3/4 of an acre for a backyard, and I just love plants, love them. And so it was a Friday night. That following Saturday, we didn't have a lot to do, but it was like spring was in the air and I wanted to be outside. And I thought, how great would that be if I could just go buy flowers guilt-free tomorrow? Because I hadn't set it aside in the budget. I hadn't said, hey, here's $200 to go buy plants. I just wanted to. So I went to bed, didn't think much else of it, but it was what I was thinking of before I went to bed. And that's kind of the power. If you've never read the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, incredible book, right?
Awesome.
You can impregnate your subconscious mind and make it work for you at bedtime.
Love it.
Yes. So I went to bed, just kind of tossed it up in the air and said that would be really cool. And I woke up the next morning, and before I got around, I checked my email and I had a statement from my Lowe's credit card. I was like, okay, bills due, whatever it is. And it had a credit of $2,500 on it.
Wow.
And I thought, holy crap. Yes, I get to go buy these flowers guilt-free. And my husband was like, okay, you don't need to spend $2,500 on flowers. What had happened was as military personnel, some credit cards give you a special rate.
So cool.
And some cards will proactively go back and give back your interest. Well, that is what had happened to the Lowe's card. I had applied for this thing, had just kind of tossed it up, didn't follow up with it. And they had given us interest back for like 6 years of interest on this card.
Neat.
So we had this massive credit, and I was like, I get to go buy flowers guilt-free. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
And I did. And I went out. I didn't spend $2,500 on flowers. I spent, probably $150. But I got to do it guilt-free. And, that's the power of, I mean, I've manifested my car. I manifested a pool last year for free. One of those above ground pools, because you couldn't find them for COVID. And people were being nasty sharks about it and buying it. Like standing around here, they were like standing outside Walmart waiting for it to come in. Oh my gosh. They'd buy it and then they'd sell it for like 5 times the price.
Okay, so how did you do this, Stephanie? How did you manifest your pool?
So part of it was intuition, but we were sitting in the backyard and my husband was on like all these sales websites, like all these different apps where you could sell a pool, we could find one, whatever. And he was like, we're getting a pool today. I was
Mm.
like, okay. I was like, I really don't want to spend a bunch of money on it. I'm not paying 3 to 5 times the price of this pool because I know how much it actually costs.
Hmm.
So I had set the intention. I was going to get a pool, but I wasn't going to be hosed on getting this pool.
Now, pause. I'm going to stop you right
Yeah.
there. When you say I set the intention, you mean just voicing it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you
Yeah.
just said out loud,
I
I
just
want a
said
pool.
Yes.
And I don't want to pay 3 to 5 times what I
Exactly.
should.
Yep.
Got it.
And so then I just followed kind of the silent clues, right? Like I was on these, some of these sales websites, and then all of a sudden my intuition said, check Craigslist. And I was like, well, nobody uses Craigslist anymore. That's stupid. Logic mind, right? Said it was stupid. I checked Craigslist. Sure enough, there was somebody who had gotten a new pool and had their old pool that they were putting out on the curb that night. They said, we don't have a ladder or a filter, but it's everything else. Well, we have a ladder. We had a filter from last year's pools. And so I said, babe, it's free. Let's go get it.
Wow.
And so he drove out and picked it up. It was like a 45-minute drive. He picked up the pool, brought it back. It was a little sweat equity that we had to do. I mean, we had to power wash it. It was pretty gross. And then we used Flex Seal, of all things, because it had some holes in it. So we literally painted the bottom of the pool with Flex Seal. It was perfect.
Love
Free
it.
99, as my husband calls it.
Free 99.
Yes.
You know, it reminds me of another quote. Thinking about what Albert Einstein said, you can look at life as if there is no such thing as miracles, or as if everything is a miracle.
Yeah.
And that really is that mindset shift, because you can look at your story about your pool in so many ways, but recognizing and tapping into the power of your intuition, the power of your mindset, the power of your manifestation. I mean, that feels opulent.
Yes.
That feels so indulgent.
And it's a game.
It's a game.
And so when you can have fun with it and you're not stressed, right? Like think of any time in your life where you've been stress-free, like you've been blissed, you've been present. Like things happen faster in that state, right? If you're a runner and you go for a run and you're relaxed, your time's always faster. When you're in that relaxed state. And so when you can create in that relaxed state, that relaxed energy, things happen faster because there's no pressure to show up in a certain way, right? You just get to have fun with it.
I dare say that colors are brighter too. You know, life feels more enjoyable when you're in that joyful state, as opposed to a pressured state.
Exactly.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Every time I speak to you, the time flies by, Stephanie. This is so much fun. I can't even believe how quickly time has flown right now. But before I ask you our final questions, I'd love for our audience to know where we can find you and where we can follow you. I love your perspective, and we'd love to be able to follow you further.
Thank you. So if you go to my website, theopulentlife.com, that has all my social media links. It has a link to my podcast. You can book a call with me and we can have a conversation about your intuition and how to invite that in. And that's probably the best place is to just head over to that website. It is under construction, so you will see it change, but all my social media links are on there. So you can head over there and find out the podcast, find me on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the two places that I hang out the most.
Wonderful. Definitely. And we'll put all of that in the show notes for everyone as well, including a link to The Power of the Subconscious Mind that you recommended for us to read. We'll be sure to follow through to that as well. So one of my final questions you've already answered, but maybe you have a new perspective on it since your therapist spoke to you many years ago. But what is your superpower today?
Ooh, that's a great question. So my superpower today, I would say, is partly the intuition, but also being an empath. So I can feel energetically how somebody's feeling. And sometimes I take on that energy and it like yesterday afternoon, I took on somebody's fear energy and it took me out. I had to literally take a nap to recover from it. But it allows me to connect with people in a different way. And through the masks, through the persona, I can tell whether somebody is feeling rough that day. And so I like to walk around and sprinkle joy. And so I am incredibly friendly when I go to the store, even to people who are nasty to me, because I do know, because of my empathic and intuitive gifts, I do know that they're struggling with something and it has nothing to do with me. And so I go out of my way, especially if someone's been rude to me, I go even farther to be really nice to the next person.
I love that. That is a real superpower. I love that. I love that. Do you find that your children are learning similar techniques?
Yes. So children are all very sensitive to energy in general. But if you let them cultivate that, you give them that safe space, then they can start to tap into it. And I let my kids ask me any questions. Nothing is off limits. I tell them that regularly. Listen, if you heard a word at school today, or you have a question about something, I'm going to give you the 100% honest answer. And then I'm going to let you know whether we talk about that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? Where our values stand.
Yes. Right. Like, I didn't want my kids to, find out through the grapevine the birds and the bees conversation. Right. And so I have been very open with them. Listen, you want to have that conversation? We'll have it. But I'm going to give you all the scientific facts. I'm going to give you all the information about it, and then let you, ask questions as need be. And so they don't repeat terrible words, not knowing what they mean.
Only intentionally.
Yes.
What, Stephanie, is your definition of happiness?
Oh, my definition of happiness is presence. Just being there, because we can get so caught up in the logic mind and making sure that our day fits together and it all makes sense. But when you can be present in a conversation, that is a game changer for people.
So true.
When you're not sitting there checking your phone and trying to find out what's going on Instagram, when you're actually engaged with somebody, that is the best gift that you can give them. I don't know who said it, but I do love this quote. And it's, people will not remember what you said to them, but they will remember how you made them feel. So be present.
Absolutely. And I can tell that's probably why you get so much out of your podcasting, out of your one-on-one clients, because you really can fill your own bucket with that presence with them and bring fulfillment into your own life. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. So my final question is, if all of your website that you're working to re-beautify and all of the work that you've put out there on Facebook and on Instagram were to disappear, and you could leave us with one message on your podcast, one podcast message that everybody would tune into, and you knew we were all listening, what would that one message be to your audience?
The one message would be to do it for the joy of it.
Love it.
For no other reason. If you had nothing else to demonstrate, to do it for the joy. Because so many people do things joyless. That it takes away their life. Do it solely for the joy.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think right next to that meme, I'm picturing you with that shopping cart with your legs flying up behind you.
Yes.
And that's what the meme would be.
Yes.
It would just be, do it for the joy of it, flying behind a shopping cart.
Yep.
Oh, Stephanie, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your hour with us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you for this great conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. And thank you to all of you for listening. And I hope that this brings you so much insight into how to tap into your intuition and how to use that to manifest an opulent life of your own. Thank you so much. We look forward to hearing and seeing you next time. Until then, today's going to be a great day.